Hey friends, welcome back to English Unleashed. I'm Tom. Today we are going to test your listening. You will check how much you understand. Here is how the episode works. You will listen to three different monologues. Each monologue is at a different level. The first one is beginning level. It is simple and clear. The second one is intermediate level. It is more natural and detailed. The third one is advanced level. It is more complex. For each part, you will do three things. First, you will just listen. Second, you will ask yourself how much you understand. And third, you will say the main idea in at least one sentence. Let's begin.
Yesterday was a simple day, but it was a really good day. It was not exciting or busy, but it was calm, quiet, and comfortable. Sometimes we don't need a busy day. Sometimes we just need a peaceful day. I woke up at around 8 in the morning. I didn't wake up early because I didn't have to go to work. It was my day off, so I didn't have any plans in the morning. When I woke up, I didn't get up immediately. I stayed in bed for a few minutes. I felt relaxed, and I didn't feel any stress. I picked up my phone and checked my messages. I saw a few messages from friends, and I read them slowly. Then I checked the weather. The weather was sunny. The sky was blue, and there were no clouds. When I saw the sun, I felt happy and positive. A sunny day always makes me feel better. After that, I got up slowly and went to the kitchen. I didn't feel hungry at first, but I knew I needed breakfast. I made a cup of coffee and some toast. I didn't want to stay at home all day. The weather was too nice. So I put on my shoes, took my headphones, and left the house. I walked to a park near my home. It's not a big park, but it's very nice and peaceful. There were many people there. Some people were running, some people were walking their dogs, and some were sitting on benches and talking with friends. I saw a man playing with his dog. The dog was running and jumping. It looked very happy. I walked slowly and listened to music. I didn't think about work or problems. I just enjoyed the moment. The air was fresh and the sun was warm on my face. It felt really good. After my walk, I went back home and rested for a while. In the afternoon, I met a friend at a small cafe. The cafe was quiet and cozy. We ordered coffee and sat near the window. We talked about many things. We talked about our week, our work, and our future plans. We also talked about small things, like movies and food. It was a simple conversation, but it was nice. Talking to a friend always makes me feel better. In the evening, I stayed at home. I didn't want to go out again. I felt a little tired, but in a good way. I made something small to eat, and then watched a movie. The movie was interesting, but I watched it slowly because I was relaxed. After the movie, I just sat quietly for a few minutes. No phone, no noise, just silence. It was not a busy day. It was not a special day, but it was a peaceful day. And sometimes that is exactly what we need.
Okay, now answer this question. How much did you understand? 100% means you understood everything. 70% means you understood the main idea. 40% means you understood some words. 10% means you felt lost. All right, now take some time and say the main idea in at least one sentence. Now let's move to the next level, intermediate level.
A few days ago, something small happened to me, but it made me think a lot. It was one of those moments that seem normal at first, but later you realize it had a deeper meaning. It was a quiet afternoon, and I decided to go to a small bookstore near my house. I don't go there very often, but whenever I do, I always feel calm. The place is not big, but it has a warm and peaceful atmosphere. There are wooden shelves, soft lights, and the smell of books in the air. When I walked in, there were only two other people inside. One person was sitting in a corner reading, and another person was slowly looking at books on a shelf. I didn't have a plan. I just wanted to walk around and see if something interesting caught my attention. I started walking between the shelves, looking at different titles. Some books were about travel, some were about psychology, and some were novels. I picked up a few books, read the back cover, and then put them back. I wasn't really looking for anything specific. I just enjoyed the feeling of being there. After a few minutes, I noticed an older man standing near a table. He was holding a book in his hands, but he didn't look like he was reading it. He looked a little confused. At first, I didn't pay much attention, but then I saw that he was looking around, as if he needed help. I walked closer and asked him, "Excuse me, do you need help?" He looked at me and smiled. He said, "Yes, I'm looking for a book, but I can't find it." I asked him what kind of book he was looking for. He said he wanted a book he had read many years ago, when he was young. He couldn't remember the title, but he remembered the story. He started explaining the story to me. It was about a man who traveled alone and learned important life lessons during his journey. As he spoke, I realized he wasn't just talking about the book. He was remembering his past. His voice became softer, and his eyes looked far away, as if he was seeing something from many years ago. I tried to help him. We walked together from one shelf to another, looking at different books. I showed him a few options that sounded similar, but none of them were the one he wanted. After some time, he said, "It's okay. Maybe I don't need to find it." I asked him, "Why not?" He smiled again and said, "Because I already remember how it made me feel." That sentence stayed in my mind. Sometimes we think we need to find something again, a place, a book, a moment. But maybe what really matters is the feeling we had, not the thing itself. Before leaving, he thanked me for helping him. I told him it was no problem, but honestly, I felt like he had given me something more important. I didn't buy any books that day, but I left the bookstore with a new thought in my mind. And sometimes, that is better than buying anything.
Okay, now answer this question. How much did you understand? 100% means you understood everything. 70% means you understood the main idea. 40% means you understood some words. 10% means you felt lost. All right, now take some time and say the main idea in at least one sentence. Now let's move to the next level, advanced level.
A few months ago, I had an experience that changed the way I think about time, not in a dramatic or sudden way, but slowly, almost quietly. It happened on a day that, at first, felt completely ordinary. I was sitting in a train, traveling from one city to another. It wasn't a long journey, maybe 2 hours, but I remember feeling unusually restless. I had brought my laptop with me, planning to get some work done, but I couldn't focus. I opened a document, stared at it for a few minutes, and then closed it again. I checked my phone, scrolled through messages, opened social media, and then closed it again. Nothing seemed to hold my attention. It felt as if my mind was constantly searching for something, but I didn't know what. At some point, I gave up trying to be productive. I put my laptop away, leaned back in my seat, and simply looked out of the window. Outside, the landscape was moving slowly. Fields, trees, small houses, all passing by in a quiet, continuous rhythm. There was nothing particularly special about the view, and yet, after a while, I found myself completely absorbed in it. Sitting across from me was an elderly woman. She wasn't using a phone, she wasn't reading, she wasn't doing anything that we usually consider productive. She was just sitting there, looking out of the window, much like I was. After some time, she turned to me and said, very simply, "It's beautiful, isn't it?" I nodded and said yes. But then she added something that stayed with me long after the journey ended. She said, "You know, when I was younger, I never had time to notice things like this." At first, I didn't respond. Not because I didn't understand, but because I felt there was something deeper in what she was saying, something that needed a moment of silence. She continued, "I was always busy, always thinking about the next thing, the next task, the next problem, the next goal." She paused for a moment, then smiled slightly. "And now I realize that I was always in a hurry to get somewhere, but I never really noticed where I was." That sentence stayed with me, not because it was complicated, but because it was true in a way that felt uncomfortable. We often think of time as something we manage, something we use efficiently, something we try not to waste. But rarely do we think about how we experience time, how we feel it, how we live inside it. As the train continued moving, I stopped checking my phone, I stopped thinking about work, and for the first time that day, I felt completely present. The journey didn't become more exciting, nothing extraordinary happened, but something inside me changed, a small shift in awareness. I realized that maybe the problem wasn't that I didn't have enough time. Maybe the problem was that I wasn't really living the time I already had. When the train arrived, I packed my things and stood up. The elderly woman smiled at me again, and we said goodbye without exchanging names. It was a short interaction, but it stayed with me far longer than many longer conversations I've had. Since that day, I've tried, not perfectly, but consciously, to slow down, even for a few moments, to notice small things, to be present, even in ordinary situations. Because sometimes the most important moments in life are not the big, dramatic ones. They are the quiet ones we almost miss.
Okay, now answer this question. How much did you understand? 100% means you understood everything. 70% means you understood the main idea. 40% means you understood some words. 10% means you felt lost. All right, now take some time and say the main idea in at least one sentence.